Your daily dose of sports talk is here. Highlights, interviews, and analysis. From the entertainment capital of the world, SportsWrap with Jason Page starts now.
And we welcome you to it, this Monday edition of the show, all across America and Canada, on over 270 affiliates, and you are all important to me, every last one of you. As well as on YouTube, you could be watching there or listening on the podcast. Thanks for being with us. Lot to do over the next 60 minutes on this show. Very busy Monday show because it was a very busy weekend. So we will dig in, drill down into some of the top stories from that weekend, as much of it as we possibly can. We will be joined by a whole host, a gaggle of people. Sam Yarnell will be here in about 10 minutes to talk about MLB at the All-Star break. He hangs out with us almost every day on the show. We'll be joined by Nick Hamilton, who does a great job with Nightcast Media, covers the WNBA. I have some things to say regarding the WNBA, but regarding something else surrounding the WNBA. We'll get to that coming up a little later in the show. R.J. Clifford, former UFC fighter, former MMA fighter, MMA analyst. I want to get his thoughts on what took place here in Las Vegas, where I am. Talk about what happened at UFC 239, Conor McGregor, Paddy Pimblett, the Max Holloway fight with McGregor, getting injured. We'll get into all of that. We'll also be joined by Jerry Bonkowski, who does a great job, former SI, I should say, NASCAR writer, longtime NASCAR aficionado, has covered the sport for decades. He will join us to recap a wild and long night in Atlanta. But we get things started, as we always do on this Monday edition of the show. It's time for the big story. Hey, the big story is presented by the Daily Wrap, our Monday through Friday newsletter, courtesy of Substack. The Daily Wrap is the Sports Wrap with Jason Page newsletter. It covers the top stories that we're talking about here on the show. Go and subscribe. It's free. All you got to do is scan the QR code. It's right there. You got your phone in your hand. Just scan the QR code, and boom, you're there. And we welcome you to go and check that out, especially today, because I have some pointed comments beyond the Daily Wrap newsletter. There's going to be a subsequent posting there, because somebody who covers sports media and media for a living decided to take some unnecessary shots at me on his website. And I'm not going to say the guy's name because, frankly, he's a giant greaseball he's not worth allowing my airtime that you guys tune into. He's not worth me saying his name on my airwaves. It's not worthy of it, is quite frankly how I feel about it. That'll be also over on the Sports Wrap with Jason Page Substack. Go and subscribe. I promise you're going to want to read it, especially if you know anything about sports media and want to kind of understand a little bit about what goes on in this industry, because it all fits together with what we're going to talk about here for the next few minutes. And that is this whole thing that took place between Dan Patrick and Cathy Engelbert, who's the commissioner of the WNBA. So last week, Dan Patrick went scorched earth on Cathy Engelbert. And the reason he did was she stood him up. Todd Fritz, who is the person booking Dan Patrick's show, saw her at a pairings party for the American Century Golf Championship, the Celebrity Golf Championship held in Lake Tahoe every year, and went up to the commissioner of the WNBA and booked her for Dan Patrick's show. Well, then she didn't show up the day of the booking, and they waited around for 2 hours. And she didn't come on and answer the questions that a lot of people want to hear her answer. And that's a bad job on her part. She claimed that WNBA PR told her she couldn't do it, and she made the decision not to do it. But she didn't let them know until the last second that she wasn't coming after they waited around for 2 hours. Dan Patrick went scorched earth and went on his show and spent 6 minutes telling his audience how she stood him up. and saying that, hey, I don't mind if you don't want to come on, but don't tell me you're coming on. And then he proceeded to talk about it for 6 minutes, which is something he could have said in 1 minute. But he wanted to make the point that the WNBA is this rudderless ship and all of that. My point in reacting to that over the weekend on X, which has gotten like 1 million views here in the last 36 to 48 hours, was to say, Dan's got to be better than that. As the guy who's considered one of the standards for the industry and has been around the block a long time, you don't do that. Unless you really don't care about ever having the commissioner come on your show again and you want a grandstand, which is what he did. And frankly, he's only proven my point to be more true today because after saying at the start of his show or in the first hour of his show over on Peacock today that I don't really have anything more to say about it, he has proceeded to revisit that the entire show today. Every time he's had an opportunity, he's come back to it. Whether it's a caller, calling in, whatever it may be. So Dan, don't tell us it's not about your ego, because you're telling us it's about your ego without telling us it's about your ego. And look, that happens in the industry. That happens. And I called out Dan for what I thought was something that was an unprofessional look. If a young broadcaster hosting a sports talk show did this sort of thing because a guest no-showed, he'd get pulled into the PD's office and he'd be reprimanded. At the very least. And I know because I spent 30 years in this industry. Okay? No matter how much people may want to throw dirt at me and borderline libelous writings from certain people that used to work in the industry and now run websites because nobody will hire them to run a station anywhere in the country. The reality is that Dan, who I have an immense amount of respect for, the reason I'm doing what I'm doing today is because guys like Dan Patrick came before me. It's like the Mike Francesa stuff. You can criticize what Mike Francesa was late in his career while acknowledging he's the reason a lot of us worked in the industry. If you don't know who he is, go and look him up. He's one of the titans of sports radio and one of the founding fathers of sports radio. But Dan Patrick screwed up. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me privately who don't want to say what I said publicly because they're afraid of retribution. And the mob that came after me over the last 48 hours on social media. I don't care. And I don't have to because I own my platform and I'm independent. And I said what needed to be said, and I have no regrets about it. We'll talk more about the WNBA, Cathy Engelbert, with Nick Hamilton from Nightcast Media. But baseball All-Star Game talk and baseball at the All-Star break is next. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. I've had my say in the big story. Nick Hamilton of Nightcast Media covers the WNBA. Get some thoughts on what I had to discuss in the big story with him, and more a little later on. Sam Yarnell is here on this glorious Monday, where baseball has reached the All-Star break, Sam Yarnell. We made it. Looks like we made it. I've been talking about this all season long with our friend David Aardsma, big league reliever and closer, former hurler, who comes on with us every Wednesday as SportsWrap goes inside baseball. And I said, this Jacob Misiorowski thing, it's great throwing 105 and 104 and hitting the gun and all this stuff. And now we were supposed to have him pitch against Paul Skenes this weekend. That didn't wind up happening. By the way, Paul Skenes has to be like out of his mind happy right now because he's getting run support over his last couple of starts that he's probably never seen since joining the Pirates. But Sam, I am curious to get your take as we go into the All-Star break. What is jumping off the pages to you? No pun intended.
So many big stories headed into this All-Star break, Jason. I mean, first of all, I got to give credit where credit is due. Paige Stradamus over here with the Boston Red Sox. Guys saw it coming before I think even the Boston Red Sox saw it coming. They're by far the hottest team in baseball over the last 2 weeks.
Thank the Yankees.
9 straight wins they reeled off headed into the All-Star break, and they look like a semblance of a real team again. Now, all of that said, they're still, 12 games back in the division? They are in third place, right? That is nothing to shake a stick at, right? They have cemented themselves as not the worst team in the AL East right now. We'll see how the next, 3 weeks, 2 weeks out of the All-Star break go, and where they get by the time we get to that August 3rd or 4th or whatever the new pushed back deadline is. By the time we get to that, which, by the way, is going to make things all the more interesting, Jason, and is a whole other reason that headed into the All-Star break, and specifically over this weekend, I hate to be this guy, but I'm seeing other people say it in the media. Major League Baseball is throwing up all over itself yet again with the scheduling. In case you missed it, Saturday afternoon, 1:30 p.m. was the Major League Baseball draft. 1:30 p.m. on a Saturday afternoon, going up against Major League Baseball games.
Sam.
In addition to the Genesis Scottish Open and the Wimbledon.
Sam, can I stop you for 1 second? They're telling us we don't think people care about our draft. That's exactly what they're telling us.
Exactly. While Jason, mind you, they're saying that with their actions while simultaneously proposing in these new ongoing CBA discussions that the MLB draft is going to be completely overhauled because we're going to stop taking high schoolers and it's going to be a completely different thing. We're going to start seeing guys get drafted and come up within a couple of months. It's a disaster for MLB on the draft front. Then you take it to, what happens right after the draft? Oh, players go into the minor leagues. Major League Baseball throwing up all over themselves once again at the minor league level. Did you see the All-Star Futures game this weekend? No, of course you didn't. Why? Because it also went up against Major League Baseball games and the Major League Baseball draft. It is a disaster, the scheduling that Major League Baseball has had for the beginning of this All-Star break. And I know people in baseball work very, 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 very hard. I am not disputing that at all. They have the longest season in sports. They have the most games of any by far to deal with in sports. And everybody likes to have a couple days off in the middle of July for the All-Star break because it's the one time that everybody in baseball says we're putting our work away for 2 days and we're going on vacation for 2 days or whatever. But oh my goodness, we have to figure out something better with this schedule. Baseball is a game that is built to grow at an exponential level right now, and Major League Baseball is holding themselves back. That's my huge takeaway headed into this All-Star break.
We'll do postseason awards, midseason awards rather, tomorrow on the show because that's a good day to do it. Obviously, as we reach the All-Star break, where you're just trying to figure out what you're going to talk about for a few days. Lots of WNBA on the schedule, so trust me, we'll get into that as we go through the week. But I am curious I'm going to spring one on you in the last 3 minutes here. The team currently in line to make the playoffs that you don't think will be in the postseason, that you worry about. I'll spin the wheel. I'll do the spinning wheel of death while you think of that, or we'll play some fancy music because I did spring this one on you without putting it in the rundown. But the team right now that's in that won't be when we get to the end of the season. Who is it?
I'll make it harder on myself.
Okay.
I'll take a division winner who I think definitely won't win the division, might not even make the playoffs, who is currently leading their division right now. And I'm sorry, I have to take the Texas Rangers.
Wow.
I have to take the Texas Rangers.
That's a good one.
I just think you're relying upon a staff, and I know we were talking about this staff in the preseason like they were putting together all the Infinity Stones. But now you look at what they're relying on. It's Mackenzie Gore, and we know Mackenzie Gore's history post All-Star break. It's not good. It's not good at all. You're relying on guys who have been inconsistent throughout the course of their careers in terms of the pitching side, beyond Mackenzie Gore, right? And then on the hitting side, you're coming off of a weekend where you put out into the media that we're potentially going to trade Corey Seager this offseason, right? It's in a very weird spot for the Texas Rangers. I don't see them finishing as a first place team when you've got the Seattle Mariners, who have postseason experience, who have experience winning that division in the very recent past. You've got the Houston Astros, who looked horrible for the first 2 months of the season, and for the last month and a half have been absolutely incredible. They've been at more than treading water, right? So I'm going to take the Texas Rangers. I'm positive they're not going to win the AL. I'm pretty sure they're not going to win the AL West. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs either, Jason.
I'm going to go with one that isn't currently in, that I think does get in. I'll go the other way. And hello to our friends watching in Pittsburgh on Sportsnet Pittsburgh. Your Pirates are going to the playoffs this year. I'm putting them in. I think they get in as a wild card. They're 50-47. Look at the run differential at plus 44. They've won 7 of 10 going into the All-Star break. If there's any team right now that doesn't want to see the All-Star break, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I expect that they're going to actually get a little busy, get a little freaky at the trade deadline, and do something to sort of upgrade this team. But I like the position they're in. I think fans in Pittsburgh should be thrilled right now, Sam.
Yeah, do they have any prospects left to trade? I thought they called them all up already.
Well, we'll find out, because they might have to use whatever they have. Sam will return later in the show for Odds and Ends. Welcome back to this Monday edition of the show. Sam Yarnell returns later in Odds and Ends. I had my say in the big story. Talked a little bit about the Dan Patrick, Cathy Engelbert stuff, and I explained kind of my role in the reaction to it. Now everybody's talking about it. Nick Hamilton isn't one of these guys that just parachutes in on the WNBA. He actually covers the WNBA and does that. Nightcast Media, returning contributor on this show, and we appreciate him doing that. So let's jump into it. You disagreed with my take on the Dan Patrick, Cathy Engelbert thing. So before we get into some on the court stuff, I wanted to give you an opportunity to sort of express your opinion on it.
Well, first of all, Jason, thank you for having me. It's good to be back once again. The reason why I disagree with you, respectfully, is because I felt like this. Cathy Engelbert has unfortunately had a history of not showing up to things that she should have shown up. Obviously, going through the CBA with the players union and the players have always talked about her coming out and kind of setting the tone for them, basically protecting the players. And for someone to agree, it's like today, for example, I agreed yesterday to come on your show. We set a time, we set a date. Now, you're already into your show. You're minutes into your show. And then you get an email from me saying, you know what, Jason? I talked to some of my reps, and they don't think it's a good idea to come on your show for whatever reason, right? You've already promoted it. You've done everything you needed to do. That disrupts the flow of your show. Obviously, your listeners are looking forward to, having me on and getting my opinion on something. That disrupts the flow of the show, and it's very disrespectful. So I understand Dan Patrick for saying what he said. Now, he didn't, berate her. He kept it pretty factual. And then they showed her on the course taking chip shots
out of the bunker.
Same place
out of the bunker.
He was supposed to be in that empty chair that they also showed. She's taking chip shots. And I agree. If you didn't want to come on, it's fine. Hey, when they reached out, when Fritzy reached out to her and her people and said, hey, would you want to come on? And if the answer would have been no, Dan Patrick has been rejected before. It's not the first time. But then when you agree to do it, and then you don't come on 2 hours into the show, there lies the problem. And it makes you look bad, but it also makes the league look bad as well.
Let me push back a little, and I'll push back on this angle. You mentioned something very key, that Fritzy went and talked to her, and then you said her people. No. He just talked to her. And John Momola, and I don't often cite John Momola for anything, but he wrote a piece for Barrett Sports Media today. And a lot of what he said basically was agreeing with me, and that's not why I'm bringing it up. But he brought up something else in this that I think is missed, and it's the gatekeepers. You know as well as I do, having worked in this industry, the gatekeepers get pissed off when they get skipped over. And I think part of what was at play here was the gatekeepers said, no. You come through us to set up that interview. And I'm not saying that's right, by the way. I've blasted Cathy Engelbert to the moon 1,000,000 times over on this show all the time. Okay, the league needs new leadership. So anybody saying, "Oh, you're taking Cathy Engelbert's side," no, I'm not. Don't be a fool. I'm not you. But the fact that they went over PR's head and set it up on their own, you know as well as I do, there are PR people that get pissed off about that stuff. I have a certain guy from MLB Network that comes on here all the time. One of their bigger hosts comes on here all the time. I have a relationship with him and I set it up through him, but I still always give the courtesy to their PR people and say, "Hey, just so you know, I talked to Brian, want to make sure you're cool." Okay, thanks, no problem. So I think that's part of what was at play here too, which DP did not say, and DP probably won't say, is the fact that the gatekeepers probably got pissed off here too.
Well, yeah, I think that is one angle to look at, but also too, as you elocuted, when you have a relationship with somebody and they felt like, hey, I'm going directly through this person and I expect them to let their people know because it's their people. And if I already directly talk to you and you verbally agreed to joining my program, then I don't expect anything but maybe your people saying, hey, can you ask her more about this? Can you lean away from this a little bit? We've all gone through those things with PR or reps that represent the talent that we're trying to acquire to be on our shows. So I think there's two ways of looking at this. And that's why I said I don't think Dan was wrong to say what he said because he had every right to. And at the same time, the difficulties that we as elevating and independent journalists faced, even when we have these direct relationships, and even if the person has said yes, and then you go tell the rep, hey, I just talked to John and John agreed to come on tomorrow, and that may be like, well, no. And now it's messed up the whole flow of everything. So now you scratch your head and wonder, damn, should I even said anything? Maybe I should just went directly to the source.
I've explained why I had an issue with the way Dan handled it. We won't relitigate that because I want to ask you about the LA Sparks. They fired their GM, Reagan Pebley. You're out there in LA, the belly of the beast. Was this kind of unexpected to those of you that follow the team and are out there, and where are they going to go next?
I don't think it was unexpected. Maybe the timing may have been slightly unexpected just because they're in the midst of the season and they're 3 weeks away from the trade deadline. And obviously, as I wrote on nightcastmedia.com, I said, well, if you're going to get rid of Reagan Pebley, and obviously the interim GMs who have been there are going to resume their duties as GM for the remainder of the season, I said, well, you're going to have to pick somebody at some point. And I felt like Swin Cash, who is a known, first of all, basketball Hall of Famer, champion. She's worked in the front office in the NBA with the New Orleans Pelicans in various roles. And I said, you're going to need someone who can galvanize not only a front office position and the people in the front office, but also picking the next head coach, obviously acquiring players that are going to fit into the system that you're looking to build a championship contender in the next few years. Because as we all know, I'm not saying anything against Lynn Roberts. I think Lynn Roberts knows basketball, but as we all have seen before, when the changing of the guard happens, whoever was part of the old guard is on a short rope.
Nick Hamilton's going to hang out with us for some of the YouTube portions of the show that we put up there. I got a couple more questions I want to ask him. The Fever and Aces went at it last night in Las Vegas. What's going on with the Aces? I've got some things I want to talk to about with him as well. Stick around. We've got more to do on Sports Wrap. We're coming back. RJ Clifford will be here, of course, former MMA fighter. Talk about UFC 239 and a whole bunch more. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to the show. Good to be with you on this Monday. Let's bring in our good friend. I have not talked to this guy in a while. I feel bad, but it's because I don't follow UFC the way I used to, which is why this is a great conversation. RJ Clifford, MMA analyst, former fighter himself, hangs out with us. So I want to get your thoughts on what we saw at UFC 329 here in Las Vegas, because there aren't a lot of times where I'm like, I gotta watch UFC. This was one of those times that I was pumped. Like it was a Saturday night. I had nothing going on here. We were just kind of hanging around the apartment, and I said, let's watch. And I tuned in early, and boy, I'm glad I did. Otherwise, I would have missed all the action. But I tuned in early to watch, and I tuned in time to see Patty do his thing. But before I talk about that, I want to get your thoughts now that you've had a couple of days to sort of marinate in it. What took place between Conor McGregor and Max Holloway, and the way this whole thing ended, and what happens next.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, disappointment's the number one answer. Like, thank God we're not in the pay-per-view era where it just costs a Paramount Plus subscription and not $85, right? Yeah, absolute shame, right? It was 5 years and 1 day since Conor McGregor got his leg broke against Dustin Poirier and last fought. And obviously, him and Max Holloway had a fight over a dozen years ago, and they both, have become champions and have Hall of Fame careers since then. So it was a nice comeback fight for Conor McGregor. It was a nice payday for Max Holloway, and that injury, Conor McGregor trying to throw a jumping scissor kick in the opening seconds with a guy who turns 38 today. That's probably what happened to my knee if I tried something like that. And he broke his leg, and, a minute later he's out. So complete shame that the fight went that way. Thank God the rest of the card was absolute fireworks. Obviously, everyone tuned in to watch Conor, and rightly or wrongly, UFC events and combat sports in general they're judged by the main event. So obviously a lot of disappointment that we didn't get the kind of fight we were hoping. So now Conor McGregor is headed into surgery and rehab. He has one fight left on his UFC contract. We'll see what they do with that. Max Holloway wants that rematch. I don't know if he'll get it. But certainly not the night everyone hoped for.
What do you, so are you're convinced this happened in the octagon? This injury did not happen. You don't think it was something that happened beforehand? There's all these conspiracy theories about how he looked stepping, into the octagon, all of that. You're not buying any of it.
So injuries aren't black and white. If you've been fighting that long, if you went through a hard training camp, you're going to go into a fight with some level of aches and pains and bruises and sprains. Like it's going to be that way. So I don't think he went into that fight. We saw there's video that surfaced of him backstage warming up for the fight, and he threw that exact kick multiple times. He was hitting pads and looked absolutely fine, warming up with that exact kick, and there was no injury there. So I don't think he was debilitated in one of those things where he knew he was hurt, but just knew the fight would go that way, and he just did it for the payday or just to show up. I don't buy that for 1 second. But I think if he went into that fight 100% healthy, that's even more alarming, because that means he didn't train for it. So I don't. Long story short, I don't buy that he was broken and just went in there knowing that.
One of the things I was thrilled about in the fact that I tuned in early was seeing Paddy Pimblett, who I had never seen before, and getting an opportunity to watch him. Because I'm always looking. We were just having this conversation about NASCAR. How Carson Hocevar, this guy who's this young firecracker, 23 years old. He races with reckless abandon. And he makes me want to watch because he's like, Days of Thunder. He's like Tom Cruise in Days of Thunder. Paddy Pimblett feels like that kind of guy. Cole Trickle, thank you. Yeah. Paddy Pimblett sort of has that thing to him that makes me want to watch. Has he graduated from prospect and hype now to legitimate title contender with what we saw him do?
Definitely. I mean, he's 24-4. He only has one loss in the UFC, and that was for the interim title against Justin Gaethje in his last fight. And we all saw Justin Gaethje knock out Ilia Topuria and become lightweight champion. So talk about a loss that aged very nicely for Paddy Pimblett. And full disclosure, I've been very slow to jump on the Paddy Pimblett bandwagon because I thought he was a lot of hype, a lot of product of the UFC, seeing what you see, Jason. This guy has star potential. Now, does the skill set match the hype job? I hadn't been convinced up until probably the last 18 months or so when he just demolished King Green, made Michael Chandler look silly. And then even though he lost to Justin Gaethje, we all know Justin Gaethje's still, he's the world's best lightweight. So that's your only loss. You're in a good place. Dusting Benoit Saint Denis in 52 seconds. Benoit, I thought I thought he would win. I thought he would beat BSD, but I thought it was more durability. I thought he'd outlast him. To be able to just starch him with a submission of the year in under a minute, I did not expect. So yeah, Paddy Pimblett is as good as the hype job has made him out to be, which I didn't think I would be saying on July 13th, 2026.
Who's next for him? Is it somebody like a Topuria? Is it Islam? Like who's next for him?
So I think he has now thrust himself into lightweight contention. Justin Gaethje's in a unique spot. We thought maybe if Conor had won, he would completely cut the line and get like a title shot with Gaethje or something like that. That's obviously on the back burner. Arman Sarukian is the true number one contender, but he's kind of in hot water with the UFC with how he's handled some things. So who knows what's going on there. I'll tell you what, it is perfect timing for Paddy Pimblett to insert himself into the title conversation because it's very, very murky and things turn around quick in the UFC. One massive performance on the biggest audience of the year outside of maybe the White House. Not bad timing, Paddy.
Yeah, no, that's just it. It is timing. You know, it almost reminded me a bit of when the women fought on the undercard of the Mike Tyson Jake Paul fight, and everybody tuned in to watch Jake Paul and Mike Tyson. And then there was this fight on before it that people were like, oh, let's watch. And they were blown away by the women's fight. It almost kind of reminded me of that a little bit. RJ Clifford, MMA analyst. I always appreciate you, my friend. Let's do it again soon, all right?
Good chatting. See you, Jason.
To the show. Odds and Ends wraps it up in 10 minutes. Wimbledon and World Cup. We'll get into those. Let's bring in our friend Jerry Bonkowski, who does a great job with NASCAR. Longtime NASCAR journalist. Hangs out with us on Mondays to recap the race. I said to you off air, one of those nights where I'm glad I lived on the West Coast. Because it wasn't 2 a.m. in the morning for me when this NASCAR race ended, like it was for everybody else. Boy, oh boy, what a wild finish in Atlanta. And it's always a great finish in Atlanta, with Ryan Blaney picking up the win after leading for much of the race. But the race goes to overtime. You have Carson Hocevar in the mix, which is always fun, which I'll talk about with you in just a second. Bubba Wallace was in the mix. For a while, you had some late wrecks. I think we had 7 cautions, something like that. Jerry, your thoughts on Ryan Blaney picking up the win in Atlanta?
Well, it would have been a crime if he didn't win. That he basically, I don't want to say he dominated that race, but he came as close to dominating as you probably can. He likes that kind of a track, 1.5 mile track. It's a very fast track. It's a weathered track, which means it's got a lot of character, a lot of bumps and things. And drivers, which is one thing I've never understood in all my years of covering racing. Why do drivers like a track that's bumpy? I'd prefer something that's just ice, like an ice rink, just smooth. But they like that kind of character. And again, Ryan Blaney it was his day. It was his kind of race. It was his kind of track. And he winds up with his second win of the year.
It felt like it might be Carson Hocevar's night because he really, made a push late in this race, but then is overtaken. What was your sort of observations on the way this overtime played out?
It's Atlanta, and I mean, you can always say, well, it's 1.5 miles, like it's Charlotte or it's Kansas or it's Chicago, but it's a 1.5 mile track, but it races like a super speedway, like Daytona or Talladega. So when you go into a situation where you've got overtime in Atlanta, and of course we had weather issues that caused a delay of it for I think 2 or 3 hours of delay. Nothing surprised me. I mean, Hocevar was, he gave it a good shot. He gave it a good try. I just was hoping he wasn't going to do anything stupid. And,
he
fortunately,
he didn't. Exactly. He was on his best behavior. And I thought his comments after the race were kind of hilarious when he was interviewed, where he's like, yeah, they're okay with me right now. And they're waving and giving me fist bumps. He goes, give it a week, basically. They'll hate me again. Was essentially, I got to tell you though, on the Hocevar thing, I want to talk about Kyle Larson, but I want to bring up Hocevar.
Sure.
Because I got to tell you, the more I watch, he's 23 years old, which is still hard to fathom just how young he is. And he's already been at this now a couple of years. But I watch him out there, and he's somebody I want to tune in and watch. You know, and if you're a sport like NASCAR, and I know he just got signed to a long-term deal, if you're a sport like NASCAR, you want Carson Hocevar. You don't want every driver to be Carson Hocevar, because then it's the wild, wild west. But you want Carson Hocevars. You need Carson Hocevars.
Exactly. And, you know, the thing is that NASCAR, maybe not so much currently, but, 10, 15 years ago, when you started seeing guys like Jeff Gordon, Tony Stewart, Dale Earnhardt Jr. starting to retire, they had to look at NASCAR, specifically in the marketing department, especially had to look for the next generation of stars. And Hocevar is, arguably one of the top new guys on the block, so to speak. You're right. I mean, he's 23 years old. I see, and maybe this might be an unfair comparison, Jason, but I see a lot of Kyle Busch in him, and I like that. I like a guy who's got character, a guy who speaks out. I mean, he may say stupid things at stupid times and get himself in trouble, but he's got the talent. Once he can kind of control himself a little bit more, which is what he did yesterday, he's going to be a multi-race winner. There's no doubt in my mind. And if he continues going on this path, now that he's got a solidified contract for the next 3 years, I guess it is. Now he doesn't have to worry about his at least his long-term stretch. So he's got a chance now to do what he's got to do, and I could easily see him being a champion 2 years or 3 years from now, easily.
Yeah. And look, he's literally out there singing as they're getting ready to come back from the caution into the overtime. I loved it. Kyle Larson, tough night at the racetrack for him.
He's just having a weird year this season. I mean, him and Chase Elliott especially, those two guys, they're just having very, very weird years. They've got success. Larson was up on top of the points there for quite some time, but he's not having a consistent year, much like Chase Elliott. They're just not being consistent. They've got to change that around in the next 7, 8 races as they head into the playoffs. And they got some good tracks coming up that I think that we'll see them doing better. But you're right. It's just a very, very hard night last night.
Speaking of coming up, you've got the Brickyard next weekend. One of the crown jewels of NASCAR season. And the Cup Series. Looking ahead real quick in the final 60 seconds, who do you like there?
Again, it's like a super speedway, but it doesn't race like a Daytona or Talladega. It's maybe you might want to compare it to Talladega because it's got the length. It's a 2.5 mile track. It takes a lot of time to get around for one lap. To me, this is a race that I like to see somebody that is not a usual winner. The first guy that comes to my mind is Michael McDowell. I mean, he's won at the Daytona 500. I think we saw Bubba Wallace win last year. I mean, it came out of nowhere. This is the kind of race you're going to see somebody come out of nowhere to win it.
Yeah, you mentioned Bubba Wallace in the last 30 seconds I still have here. And despite the fact that he hasn't won this year, he's keeping himself right there as far as the point standings are concerned.
Well, that's the thing. You want to see that because now without the win and you're in situation where, if you win a race, you're automatically in the playoffs. You still have to worry about getting in the playoffs now. Even if you could have 3-4 wins and you may still possibly miss the playoffs. I mean, it's that kind of situation. Yeah. So he's got to do that for sure. I think he's got a good chance of doing it. Can he run it all the way down to the championship in Miami? I'm not 100% sure. Give me about 7 or 8 more races. Ask me then. We'll see how he's going to be then.
Jerry Bonkowski, a great job on NASCAR as always. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, sir.
Just about time to put the wraps on this baby for a Monday. But before we go, a couple of reminders. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page podcast is available for all of you that love listening to the show instead of watching it. I mean, wouldn't want to take this in. On the podcast version of the show, you can listen to it Monday through Friday, 45 minutes, limited commercial interruptions, wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube Podcasts, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Odyssey, Amazon, anywhere you get a podcast, you can listen to this show. The Sports Wrap with Jason Page YouTube channel is the place to find all things, you guessed it, Sports Wrap with Jason Page, the Monday through Friday TV version of the show, 45 minutes, commercial-free, waiting there for you. Extended conversations with some of our great guests that come on the program, as well as Sports Wrap Originals and Sports Wrap Shorts. Conor McGregor tears his ACL or blows up his right knee, and we're talking about it right away in Sports Wrap Shorts. SportsWrap shorts available on our YouTube channel. Also available on our TikTok, SportsWrap Jason page, and on our Instagram by that same name. And don't forget our new website, sportswrap.tv. SportsWrap.tv, the place to find everything related to the show, all the video stuff I mentioned, all the audio stuff I mentioned. The Substack daily newsletter is there as well. You could find your affiliate. All you got to do is type in your city and state, and boom, you can figure out where the show is, what time of the day it is on. The merch store is coming soon as well there. All right, without any further delay, on this Monday edition of the show, it's time for some odds and ends. Odds and ends. Sam, what's going on? You've got a finger in the air. You're doing the Sophie Cunningham, only pointing up in the air. What do you want? What do you want to say? Go ahead. It's odds and ends.
We did a baseball segment earlier. The home run derby is tonight. There's a chance you're watching this before the home run derby starts, and there are 3 bets I have to give you.
All right.
The format changed for this year, so I went and found these bets, and I think that I've got a pretty good look on all of them. We're going over 30.5 home runs for the winner to hit. The winner to hit over 30.5 home runs over the course of the derby. We're going over 74.5 home runs in the first round. Over 74.5 home runs in the first round.
Yep.
And I'd be a loser if I didn't pick a winner. Give me Junior Caminero to win the whole thing.
I was just going through my Junior Caminero rookie cards yesterday. I was like, wow, I have quite a few of these. And by the way, Junior Caminero, the AL MVP pick of David Ardsma when we had him on the show last Wednesday. I'm going Jordan. He's going with Junior Caminero. He thinks Jordan, if they don't get into the playoffs, he doesn't think Jordan will win MVP. So, all right, that's what he has to say on that. Wimbledon, congratulations, Yannick Sinner, unless your name is Sam Yarnell, because he will never congratulate Yannick Sinner. He defeats Sasha Zverev in 4 sets yesterday. One of us may have placed a small wager on Sasha Zverev. I was feeling the love. I thought this might be the year he finds out. I watched him win the first set. I'm pumping my fist. I'm like, let's go. And then, it went the other way.
Gosh, I hate to be that guy. Bet the first set to go to a tiebreak, won. Bet that profit on the second set to go to a tiebreak, won. Man, they were just giving those things away. Those serves were amazing in that match. It was fun, at least for the first 2 sets, to watch those guys just dominate each other on serve. Except that was the only fun part of this match, right? I was telling somebody, one of my closest friends who's a huge tennis guy, of all the matches that I've ever watched in tennis, this is the one where I've most rooted for both players to somehow lose. I'm not a root for injury guy, but I'm not saying I would have been upset if on the same point both of their Achilles simultaneously exploded. I mean, 2 of the worst human beings that tennis has to offer. Let's be honest with ourselves. Between the accusations against Sasha Zverev that have spanned, almost a decade at this point, and Yannick Sinner's history with cheating. So 2 of the worst human beings that tennis has to offer, but one of them had to win.
Noskova beats Mahova in the women's final in a battle of checks. He checks. He trapped me. Noskova beats Mahova, wins her first Wimbledon title. Over in soccer, or as the rest of the world calls it, football, we've got 4 teams left, Sam Yarnell, in the World Cup. We've got wires and controversy. This is the World Cup of... They should call it the World Cup of Controversy instead of the World Cup of Soccer.
They might. They already have one of those, but they might rename that one and change this one to the World Cup of Controversy. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that England should have won. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that ball didn't hit the wire. I mean, we all freaking saw it.
Yeah.
Doesn't really help to the whole World Cup of Controversy narrative, Jason, that the top 4 teams in the FIFA ranking are the 4 teams in the final 4. Yeah. Probably not a great look for FIFA, but we're going to get some great matches out of it. So I'm looking forward to, Tuesday and Wednesday this week?
Yeah.
I'm going to give me Spain and Argentina in the final.
We'll do more on the World Cup tomorrow because we have time this week because there's no baseball. So we're gonna stretch it out a little bit, as we like to say in the industry. It's gonna do it for us on this Monday edition of the show. Thank you, RJ Clifford. Thank you, Jerry Bonkowski. Thank you, Nick Hamilton. Thank you, Sam Yarnell. And thanks to all of you at home for watching. I'm Jason Page. That does it for Sports Wrap. We'll see you back here on Tuesday. Lots more to do then. Bye-bye.